Hey, I'm Ethan.
Hey, I'm Mike.
Hey, I'm Honeybees.
I watched the first half of Towering Inferno.
I watched the second half of the Towering Inferno.
And I've watched all of the Towering Inferno.
And this
Is the other half.
The house is on fire. Don't yell fire in a crowded building, everyone.
Don't do
But
it.
we have
Unless it's actually on fire.
That's true. We have a special guest here this evening. It's always this evening, no matter when you're listening. It's always this evening.
always
Remember that,
nighttime.
folks. We have NotTheHoneyBees with us, returning again from, why can't I remember the last movie they were on?
It was a Shelley Winters movie.
Shit, yeah, what was it?
What's the matter with Helen?
There
That's
you
it,
go.
yes.
Yeah. See, that's why
Perfect.
it's hard to remember the name of the movie because it's a weird question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they were so good last time. We're bringing them back.
Of course.
I think, actually, by demand, there was someone got wind of this movie being.
Listen, I have ears all over town. The people were talking, and I was having drinks with Faye Dunaway, and she said, I read actually in Variety that this movie was coming up, and she let me know, and I had to do my due diligence.
She said, "It's the talk of the town, honeybees. You must reach out to those boys for me."
And they did. They reached out, and I was like, "All right, if you want to be on a podcast about a 3-hour-long movie, you're welcome to come back."
Yeah.
The one other thing I want to mention at the very top of the show is I did not have any idea what this movie was.
What are
all
you
right?
fucking talking about?
I had no idea. I've never heard of this movie.
The title is right there.
Well, you know what the title thought to me? What I was?
What you think it was?
I thought it was about a movie about a volcano. I thought it was going to be the Towering Inferno was a tall volcano, and at the
Oh,
top is the
no.
Inferno. You know, it's towering. It's
Sure.
just a big one. I thought it was going to be
Right.
one of those types of disaster movies.
You have to stop the volcano from exploding or
Exactly.
something?
Yeah,
Sure.
or, you know, well, there's
I don't even-
disaster. Volcano is a movie that's about a volcano, so
Yeah,
you know.
I don't even remember how I knew about it. Oh, you know what? It all goes back to the Poseidon Adventure, because that one.
Oh,
I
yes.
Oh, yeah.
That one to me is like the key disaster movie. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It has compelling characters. It has Shelley Winters. This is, and I had always heard, the Towering Inferno. But then this is that movie, but without any of that. And it's
Wait, without Shelley Winters?
without anything. Like, it lacks all the things that make Poseidon Adventure work, in my opinion.
Oh.
I see what you're saying.
It's still a good, interesting movie, but like it could have been 2 hours.
It could have been
long.
like great. Like Poseidon Adventures is a very surprisingly good movie.
It's also shorter.
It's also
It's
much
2
shorter.
hours
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, exactly.
This
is
movie,
nearly 3.
It feels like it cut from this movie come out afterwards. I think.
Yeah,
didn't
it was 2
Yeah,
years
this-
afterwards.
So I think this is kind of in that same era of disaster movies where it was like, you get your big name stars that come in.
Right.
It's all about a lot of logistics mostly. Like
It's all procedure. Like
Procedural,
That's
yeah.
how I'd describe this movie. It's
This
just like,
movie
if
is
this
like-
were to happen, what would we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, like I feel like in the 70s, people were just hungry to know like what if, and can we do it? Can we do it on film?
Right.
And like, people wanted to see a building burn. I guess I don't know.
That's the thing that I was the most surprised about in this movie is like every time you would see like Paul Newman next to like a big wall of fire. I'm like, how in the fuck are they getting these shots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how did they shoot this movie? There's so much like real fire and smoke. Like you couldn't have really. I guess you could have shot in a studio, but like. It just seems so goddamn dangerous.
Yeah.
Whereas like Poseidon Adventure, there's obviously like water and like that sort of thing. But like this is way more like when you watch like a Jackie Chan movie and you're like, how in the fuck is Jackie doing all this shit? Like there's no way to fake it. You know?
Yeah. Like there's a different era, right? Because like now, I guess I'm trying to think of like the last kind of crop of disaster movie, which was in like early 2010s with like
Probably like
2012,
2012 and, like
stuff
Day After
that.
Tomorrow.
Day After Tomorrow, all those things.
San
and it was like
Andreas or whatever.
San Andreas,
and all
yeah.
those are like big scale. Like, all right, now we're gonna do a big scale destruction scene with like the entire San Francisco getting swallowed up in a giant hole.
Right.
This is like much more smaller scale, but in some ways it's more impressive because it's like it's not just a bunch of people. Modeling things on their computer. It's like they had to build these sets. These sets had to be, destructed at some point and fall
Yeah.
apart, and they have to have like live fire in there. And like you said, you can't really CGI fire like now, like we can now. It's like that's all really there. Or like there's got to be some smoke and mirrors, haha. Or you know,
arguably too, this movie has a message more than the Poseidon Adventure does. Poseidon Adventure is just unlucky. This movie is like. This is it's basically the Jurassic Park thing where it's like you did spare expense, you cut corners, and this is the cause of it basically, right?
Yeah,
like this,
that's a good
that
point.
was what I was surprised about in my half of the movie is basically like near the midpoint of my half is like the guy who built the building was like, yeah, I really made a big fucking mistake here, didn't I, folks?
Yeah, he is. He's very like, the biggest effect that blew my mind was when they made Faye Dunaway seem sincere. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, she's so nice in this movie. She's like,
wow,
she's like one of the nicest people, and she's just a great person and very proactive with things.
She's barely in it. I mean, I think that's also what helps is like she can only be sincere for like 5-minute bursts, and then she is like pulled off via long cane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of just shocked how little she was in it. I was also surprised how many very famous people were in this movie.
Yeah.
You got like Paul Newman, you got Steve McQueen, Faye Dunaway. You've got the guy from Cloak and Daggers in this movie.
Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire is in the movie.
Wait, the guy from Cloak and Dagger, the movie you just watched, or is
yes,
really?
Yeah, the guy that just passed away. He's in this movie. I can't remember his name. He also played the principal in Recess. He's in this movie. He's one of the guys that like is working at the city, and he's the one that tells Steve McQueen, he's like, we got to blow the building up.
That guy.
I recognized him because he had that fucking mustache.
That mustache.
Yeah.
It turns him into a completely different character. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of big names in this movie.
Yeah, it was really impressive. So, honey, why did you
why did you want to talk about this movie? You said you don't even like it.
I mean, exactly. I mean, but I like you.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's fair enough. That's a good enough reason.
No, I mean, the thing is I just wanted to talk about it because I saw it years ago once when it first came on HBO, when it was streaming. I was like, oh my God, finally, Towering Inferno. And just because there's, I just was like, I don't want to listen to them talk about this movie and then like disgrace all the famous actors in it, being like, oh, it's Auntie Roo over there. And I just, it's like, it's my duty to just be here as like a moderator to be like, you do know who that is.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
that. So
we're going to need it.
Yeah, there's definitely,
because there's
there's
a lot
one
of
person in
fucking
here
famous people in here.
Or there's one famous person you're probably not going to mind us trashing, but we'll see.
All right, just fucking say it already.
O.J. Simpson's in this movie.
Oh my God, I'm so upset that it's revealed in the first because
he's a main character in the first.
He is.
He's very much in the movie.
Okay, because I obviously don't know this. So in my half of the movie, there's this scene where he just shows up after everyone's out of the building, and I'm like, oh, the danger's still around. You have to run. She's still there.
And it shows what a good agent he had because I thought he was going to die in the first like 5 minutes of the movie, and he's one of the survivors. Because I was like, oh, when we talk about it, like his role makes sense that he would sacrifice himself in some way. Instead, he said, I'm the juice baby.
Yeah. Instead, he stabbed that woman and her lover and
took their cat.
That's right. Took her cat with him.
Well, the thing is, you mentioned earlier off the podcast, like you're trying to allude to OJ being in this. You said the person with a cat, and the last scene I see with OJ Simpson is him taking a cat from the building.
Okay.
So I was like. So unfortunately, you gave a little too many clues away to who.
I thought it was subtle enough.
No,
you thought you were so smart, Mike.
You just got you. You're too sneaky.
If I had gone away with it, this is what I would have done.
Also, here's my OJ hot take. Not a bad actor.
I mean, we saw him on the stand. He convinced a ton of people that he was innocent.
Yeah. This was setting it up for him.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like there's a lot of... Sorry,
I was going to say, but tonight we're going to celebrate the hero that is O.J. Simpson in Towering Inferno.
That's right. We're finally coming. He died. You know, he's dead as well.
Exactly.
Yep. A lot of great people.
So we can speak positively of him now that he's
totally,
dead and gone.
Yeah, that's what you do, right?
As Betty Davis once famously said, my mother told me never to speak ill of the dead. Joan Crawford's dead. Good. Oh, sorry, I messed it up. Only to speak good of the dead. Joan Crawford's dead. Good. Sorry, fuck that up.
All right, well, let's jump into it.
Let's get started. So I, again, did not know what this movie's about. So I see a helicopter.
It's truly insane to me.
I see a helicopter, and I don't know where it's going, and it's dedicated to firefighters. And I'm like, firefighters really going to put out a volcano? That's crazy.
Imagining a bunch of firefighters around this entrance. They're just like shooting water into the magma.
Well, they had firefighters in Pompeii, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, they make a big deal. Like, there's a huge message that comes up that's like, this is dedicated to the firefighters.
It's huge.
Of
That
the
happens
world.
at the end of the movie, too. The movie ends with this big thing going like, we want to thank all the firefighters.
I imagine it's because a lot of them die. So they're probably like, look, this isn't like, this is cool looking at all these firefighters die. You should feel bad.
Yeah.
All right?
Well, it's not like fucking cops. Like,
yeah,
they don't.
I was gonna say, don't feel bad about them, right?
Yeah, it's like they go in to actually save people. Like, they're not in there with
Yeah.
fucking guns trying to murder people for the good of
They're
society.
only here to murder fire, which we all know is bad.
Exactly.
Or volcanoes, apparently. So then they started flying around San Francisco, and I saw a big tower. And I was like, oh.
You're like, I think that's going to be on fire at
I
some
think that's
point.
the Towering Inferno,
Yeah.
I think that's Chekhov's tower. What's kind of funny to me is they
tower.
built they built like a...
If a tower is introduced in the first half of the
gonna
movie,
burn.
it's going to burn by
It
the
was
second.
a lingering shot. It was very suggestive of what was happening, you know?
Sure.
What's actually funny to me is that this is San Francisco, right? Which is not... I mean, they set movies there, but, you don't really associate San Francisco with skyscrapers as much, especially back then when this was filmed.
Right.
But now a big building that's made of glass, it looks very similar to the Salesforce Tower that was built there, which is now exists there for real.
Right.
So I'm like, is this a prediction of the future?
I would be curious to know when that building was built, because maybe that's what inspired the movie. That they like.
No, it was built.
Okay.
That was built in like 2000. It definitely passed 2010,
never mind.
2000, something like that.
Well, then
like
this
it's
movie
relatively
predicted
new.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, hopefully not.
Salesforce known for cutting corners. Our tech
That's a
company,
fair
so I
point,
don't know.
actually. Yeah.
I have no idea. So anyway, let's see. We meet this guy named Doug. He's Paul Newman. Doug.
I love Paul Newman. He's so goddamn hot in this movie.
He's always hot in every movie.
He's so
And
hot.
I love
and he's
his
so
dressing.
sweaty. Yes. He's dressed like Indiana Jones.
No, his salad dressing.
Oh, I see.
I was more of a fan of his Oreo knockoffs. I don't know if they make those anymore.
Definitely
The salad dressing is still pumping.
Salad dressing rocks. And they gave all their proceeds to
charity.
To charity.
Yeah. It's a good company. He's a good guy. Seems like a good guy, and he's hot. Like, what can you not like about Paul Newman? But he's like, I'm bored of the city. I want to get out of here. It sounds like he came back from some sort of trip or something, and he's just like, all right, I'm going back to work, but I kind of want to leave and be done with this. Since I think that what he is he's the architect of this building, and the building's built. It's the day of the grand opening. He's like, I just want to get out of here. But the guy who owns the building,
Duncan,
he's all about like, well, we're gonna build these skyscrapers all over the world. So like, you want to come on board? You want to stick around?
Wow, that is scary foreshadowing. He wants to build more of these fucking things.
Well, at the time they didn't know it was gonna explode and turn into fire. That was a
true.
cool building. They're like, this is a nice building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you design them and I'll build them. And he's like,
Oh yeah,
I don't know
like
about
a little
that.
moment together where they're like, we can do this. Wait, so he's the architect, and the other guy was it Duncan or was
Duncan?
it?
Yeah.
Okay, it was Duncan. Do you recognize who Duncan is?
No.
He's he's the lead guy from Sunset Boulevard, all grown up.
What?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
He's so old now.
yeah. Well, that was 24 years later.
Jesus, only 24 years. It's honestly kind of hard to notice him with also these big fuck off glasses. I think is the other thing.
Glasses.
That is true.
He kind of reminded me a bit of the dude who builds the replicants in Blade Runner. Like, that's what he
you're
looks
right.
to me.
He does kind of feel like the dude from the replicas.
But yeah, wow, that's amazing. Okay, wow, yet another big name. I'm glad Honeybees is here because
Yeah, it would have been like, oh, some guy.
I knew you would
guy.
never get that.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna just say Doug goes to the work floor.
Okay.
And talks to everyone, and some people are talking about some issues with his current buildings and stuff, and everyone storms him. Like, he's clearly is very important. Superstar, big decision maker. Everyone's kind of waiting on his decisions. But he's like, no, I got to go to my sick ass office in this building. Like, imagine you build a building, and you're like, I'm moving my office into that building. Like, it's kind of badass.
That's an alpha move, right?
Exactly.
There.
So what he did is he also built a freaking awesome office, and he goes in there, and he sees Faye Dunaway sitting there. And he's like, I'm gonna make out, and they go into like they have like a special room. Is this? Am I reading this right?
Yeah.
It's like a bedroom, and she's like, "This is the bedroom I made, so we can fuck in." Basically,
yeah. She wants to fuck. Like, I think
the capital F.
The one thing this movie lacks is I think what we're supposed to get is that Doug is like an outdoorsman, and that he's just come back from like sleeping in, living outside and stuff like that, and he wants to live that life, because they do say something where he's like, they're like, "Where you went? It's cold at night, right? What are you gonna do?" And he was like, "I'm just gonna sleep." But so it means like I think he's away from this place. He's been away from this place while it's being built.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I think that is a good read on that. I think he definitely shows that he's kind of been like outside.
He hasn't been paying attention to the reports,
right? To the cut corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
No,
especially
I was
later.
gonna say I don't think it doesn't seem like it implies that he's the one cutting corners. There's
No.
definitely
The corners were cut around him.
He gave him the plans and said, "You have to use this kind of cement, this kind of wiring."
And I think because he was gone, they were able to kind of do what they want. It wasn't like, because he seems like someone who's really like into overseeing everything. Because as soon as he gets here, he gets right into work mode. Like, of course, after
that would explain why he
also,
because later on he definitely holds like a bit of guilt for what happened. But I think he holds the guilt because he wasn't there. He wasn't present enough, basically.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But in short, Faye Dunaway wants to fuck, and they get it.
Yes.
What a time to be alive! You could build your own office in the building you just built, and then in that office you also built a bedroom.
I love
to
it because
fuck
she's like, if you talk about this room to anyone, make sure to tell them it's my idea. That we had the fuck room. Then we got Fred Astaire, who's an old man. He's just trying to pay the cab fare, but he can't really pay it because all he has is like a $50 bill.
Yeah.
And so he just like is really cheap and doesn't tip the guy because he only has coins.
He's a con man too.
Is he a con man?
Yeah. It's very subtle.
Massive.
It might be said in Mike's half, but I also took that as like, I only have big bills, so you can't cash that? Let me pay you in cents, which is easier to like fool someone.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
He's like that one lady who would like go around acting like a socialite in New York with the weird accent. That's what he's basically doing.
Anna Delvey.
He's got that pretty cool hat, so I get it.
And then he dances off.
Yeah. So then we are introduced to, I don't know if this character really even matters later on, but there's a lady who is deaf. And
I called her teacher. No, the lady who was the deaf mom. I didn't know her name.
Deaf
either.
mom. Yeah.
I never see deaf mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said no, she wasn't deaf. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she
No,
was.
I just never see her.
The woman who's like teaching them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who actually becomes Fred Astaire's date.
Yeah,
when they go up.
I know her. What's her name? Fucking Mrs.
Jennifer
Martindale or whatever?
Jones. Oh,
that's the character name.
I called her teacher because they never really say her name.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
this is
okay.
something. We'll just say teacher.
We'll call her teacher. Okay,
Alright,
got
we'll
it.
go with
Jennifer
that.
Jones.
Jennifer Jones. Is there any fun fact about Jennifer Jones?
This was
She's
her
the mom of January Jones.
Possible. It's actually possible. She might be. This was her final movie. She apparently married really rich and was like, "I'm done with Hollywood, baby."
Oh,
I
thought she like died. I was like, she died on set.
No, this was her final performance, and she was like, "I'm marrying a rich billionaire or whatever. Like, I'm out."
Honestly,
and
like,
she said,
you know what,
it.
that's
Good
weird
for
because like
you.
almost lines up with what could have happened in this movie, right? Because she's
Yeah.
dating someone who's super rich.
No,
going
he's
out with
pretending.
Well,
to be
he's not super rich.
Oh, he's a liar.
He's a liar.
But
He's a deceiver.
from Ethan's point of view, he looks like he's super rich.
He's fooled me.
Oh, and fun fact that my boyfriend told me while we were watching it: the exterior when they're entering the lobbies of the building is the Bank of America building in LA or in San Francisco, and the interior that they show when they're going up the elevators is the interior of the Hyatt Hotel.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was shot in San Francisco. They just
Or maybe it was LA.
pieced
I
together.
have to look it up, but like that's just the
Okay.
he recognized it immediately. He's like, "Oh, that's the Bank of America building."
Huh.
So
That's
I-
cool that
it's probably
that they shot the outside of the building and then the inside of the building for two separate buildings, and then I'm
Yeah.
assuming the rest of it is just all on
Yeah,
sets, like
it's
the
all-
promenade and all that stuff is
Yeah,
on sets.
definitely. Anyway, so the teacher's like, I'm gonna go to this cool party. We're having like a opening party, and the deaf lady's like, oh, I'm not gonna go because
She's not deaf.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, she is.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Wait.
The mom-
there's,
the mom
there's
is
teacher,
deaf, yeah.
and then there's a deaf lady she's the mom.
Okay.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter. She's not in your half.
Ethan didn't set the scene properly. It's a scene where she's basically teaching this daughter some kind of art thing, and then she brings over her mom, who is deaf, And then there's a brother character who's like listening to music, and
he's got headphones and these fucking ridiculous wireless headphones.
Like
by the way,
antenna.
They got like huge antennas. It's like, what a sci-fi are we living in?
Yeah, and she's like some woman who apparently teaches them art. That's her.
I see.
That's her literal only character trait.
That's pretty much it.
This is very like, oh God, what the fuck was the name of that movie? A Parasite, where it's like, I teach art for the rich people.
Yeah, that's basically that. So she's like, basically says that definitely is like, I don't go to parties since my husband died. It's like, oh, okay, that's sad. So she's just gonna hang out in her room. So then, under the building, there's some guy, and he's like, there's some electrical issues here, and it seems like something's like getting weird. They mention, this is important, floors 80 to 120. This is Fred Astaire getting a tour. 80 to 120 is exclusively residential. The commercial buildings are much lower. And in the closet of floor 81, there's just a ton of flammable barrels.
Why?
It's true.
Why are they there?
It's like comedic.
It's still like being built, basically. It's unfinished. But they keep all these flammable barrels on that floor.
Is it?
Well,
It looks like
the
it's
flammable barrels.
I don't know.
To
They're
build
all
the
like
building.
it just feels so convenient. It's like a literal recipe for disaster.
We like to keep everything that would destroy the building in this one closet.
Yeah, that's basically it.
I think they show it really quick on the elevator. Like it's 130 something floors. So it's like right in the middle, the last top half. It's like the perfect place to put all your flammable barrels.
One thing I did like about this movie is how all the sets basically had the number of floor on it, which kind of helped you easily track of like where we are, where the fire is. You can kind of figure out like where people are and like, this is higher, this is lower. I think that was a really fun little detail.
I'm sure it's super simple too. They probably built like one stairway set and they just replaced those like little placards. Yeah,
you're ruining the magic for me, Mike.
Sorry.
Anyway, O.J. Simpson's here.
No.
And he's like, this sensor. This isn't the only murder I'll commit.
Heard my wife is sleeping around in this building.
So anyway, he sees a sensor go off and it says there's a fire.
Because he's like the head of security, I believe.
Yeah, he's the head of security. He says there's nothing on the radar that says there's actually a fire. It just could be a weird sensor, so people aren't really thinking anything of it. And no one wants to hear about it because it's the grand opening. Duncan's like, I'm just worried about this party going off. I almost said fire, but no, he's not worried about that.
You scream shark, we got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. Like, that's what it feels like.
Very much that.
Yeah.
And then Faye Dunaway is in a state of undress. Post-coital with Paul Newman hanging out on their little in their little fuck office, and she's mentioning that like, I got offered a job as a managing editor, and like I really want that job. I got promoted. I've worked really hard on getting this position for the last like 5 years. I can make some like real change there. And he's like, ooh, we really are in a situation, huh? Because like he wants to move and go to like the jungle or wherever. Who knows where he's going?
Oh wait. Oh no, I don't like this sound. I don't like the sound of this because later on it's heavily implied she's like, I'm willing to go anywhere with you. I'm like, now it sounds like no, you fucking take that job you want, man. Like,
I know.
That sounds cool as hell.
I wrote in my notes,
about it.
Women's lib is still new.
Oh, yeah. Totally. He's at least cool about it and just like, let's just hold off on this tonight and we'll discuss this at a later moment. Basically because he also gets a call that says
we'll discuss this when you're less hysterical.
He gets a call that like apparently some wire shorted out down in the basement area, so he has to go check that out. And he looks at it and he goes down and inspects it, and he looks at the wiring's all like shitty. It's like, I guess not double insulated or something like that.
Oh,
yeah. It's something in his plans that he like wrote about.
Yeah, he's like, this is not supposed to be this way. So he wants to talk to this guy named Simmons, who is the son-in-law of Duncan.
Yes. Oh, what's his name? Richard?
Richard Chamberlain.
Simmons. Oh, Richard Chamberlain. Okay.
But it's
Why did I put
Roger
Simmons?
is his character name.
Maybe
Rogers.
Maybe Simmons is Duncan. I don't know. I wrote down Simmons.
He's a piece of shit. I fucking hate this kid.
He's meant to be
so many characters, and they're all men. They're all
I know. And it's
so
really just
exhausting.
Faye Dunaway is the one woman.
There's like 1.5 women in this movie.
Yeah. That's true.
Faye Dunaway and teacher.
It's Faye Dunaway, teacher, and then one woman in like a pink dress that shows up at one point.
I call it her Mae West. She reminds me of Mae West.
And that's pretty much all the women in the whole movie.
Wait until you learn who she is.
You can literally count all the women and people of color on one hand.
Yes, you can. Okay, Matt, the only person of color is O.J. Simpson, which is just like, you really picked them. You really picked the winner.
Oh, well, Ethan doesn't meet, I believe his name is Carlos.
Yes, the bartender.
Yeah, the bartender.
Oh, I think I saw him for like a second,
Yeah,
but I know he's going to be a main
comes
character.
in at the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
he comes in and then he also leaves at the end.
So basically he's like, we almost had a fire, guy. Duncan, like,
we almost
had a fire, but luckily we're all good.
Roll credits.
Well, like, it's so weird. The build up for this is like, are we really gonna have a fire? It's like, are they gonna fix this? And it just kind of, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So O.J. Simpson can't get the electrical stuff working. He's just like, I don't know. I think I might have to go inspect that floor where there might be a fire because
Ethan passed over. Robert Wagner arrives with giant scissors about like the cutting of the ribbon.
Yes, the cutting of the ribbon has begun. The mayor.
I just wanted to point out that Robert Wagner's in here. That's all.
And he's the mayor of L.A. or not? LA,
No,
San Francisco, right?
He is another kind of smarmy character who's like.
I forgot. Yeah, I
we'll
forgot.
We'll get into him later.
Yeah, in the office, he goes and he tells Duncan, and Duncan's like, don't worry about it. Stuff isn't up to spec, and he's like, I want to see your dang son-in-law.
Okay.
So go back to
So
OJ.
he goes.
OJ, yeah.
Yeah, OJ's like, this is fine. I'll go look at it myself. So then...
You're going to jump my Bronco real quick.
No, it's really fast. It goes up an elevator, too? So Doug stops by I keep writing Simmons. I guess that's where we're going. Mr. Chamberlain's house.
Mm-hmm.
And his
last name might be Simmons. I didn't learn it. I just know his name was Roger.
All right, we'll go with Roger. So we went to Roger's house, and his wife answers. She's like, I don't know where he is. He just wanders around a 50-mile radius. It's like, you want to hang out for a bit? He'll show up.
Mike, the younger blonde lady.
Yes. Well, I put that together because she's also the daughter of Duncan.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So Doug, he shows back. He actually shows up because, he lives there. And Doug is like, did you screw around? Like, it's very direct. It's like, did you screw around the electrical specifications?
It's such a funny moment, though, because he comes in and he's like, is your husband home? And she's like, I don't know. He comes and goes. He'll arrive when he's ready. And then he literally comes in the room, and it's like, oh, okay.
You could have just said yes.
He comes and goes. He's gonna come back. His clothes are here.
Yeah.
Okay. You really make him sound so mysterious, but you're just a guy.
Yeah.
So he's like, I need those work orders. I need to see if you actually like cut corners on the electrical. And he's like, don't worry, the electrical's fine. The code is okay. And he's like, it's all up to code. He's like, the code isn't enough for a building like this, and you know it, not up to this scale.
Yeah.
And so
he also accuses
off.
him of getting kickbacks for like using full.
There's a whole thing about like getting kickbacks, which I'm like, do places give you kickbacks? It's like, hey man, don't buy more stuff. Buy less stuff and put it on here, which I thought was a very weird detail, but
well, I don't know.
I don't know
kickbacks
enough.
Maybe for doing cheaper.
Maybe like coming under budget.
He charges you $2,000. I'm going to charge you $1,000 per yard.
Maybe.
And then you'll say, you'll get the difference or something. I don't know.
It could be true. It could be true of like cheaper stuff. Because, well, I'll get into it later. So then let's see, his wife seems upset. He's like, and she says, if you messed up Daddy's building, so God help you. She says.
Oh no.
Fred Astaire is getting ready for a party.
This is when I wrote in my notes, this is a feminist movie. Towering Inferno equals glass ceiling.
Oh, that would be a good read if not for what Mike just told me a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. Faye Dunaway killing her dream of being managing at her.
Listen, we were in the beginning of the movie when I had it.
Yeah.
You're hopeful. You're like, this movie can go places.
Yeah.
So Fred Astaire is getting ready for the party. He takes out these stock notes out of a suitcase, and look, they fooled me. I didn't know stock notes look like that.
Yeah.
Now I think about
it's almost like they don't look like that.
Like literally, Mike, an entire suitcase filled with stock notes. Like not
so
in
many.
order. Like it's like doubloons. Like it was suspicious, is what I wrote. And Ethan's like,
Suspicious?
this man.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
I was like, this man is old. He's from a different era. He probably like walked up to Mr. Wells Fargo himself and said, hey, can I buy stock in your company? He's like, sure, hurry up, go. I put it on.
Ethan's like, this man is trustworthy.
He's like, I'm all out of toilet paper. Gotta use one of these. And then Ethan's like, wow, this guy's rich.
Please, everyone, do not con me. I'm very marked.
Especially if you're not an 80-year-old ex-dancer.
Hey, you know what? I took a fishing test today at work for anti-fishing tests.
Mm-hmm.
I got a B, so I think it's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. You know, someone who's on the internet all day still gets a B.
Wow.
Kind of weird.
It was that question about an old man comes with a suitcase full of stocks.
Yeah.
What do you do? And you're like,
It's just a JPEG of set of Fred Astaire with a suitcase.
It's like a low-res JPEG.
they're like, you get a B.
Click it to get money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he takes one out and leaves. He goes and meets the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and they go off to their little date, which I guess is the opening. Because I think he just moved in. He's a new resident there. He just moved in. So I assume all residents get invited to the party too. It sounds like. Let's see.
The little plot note, because it will come in handy later, is when he comes to the door and knocks, she's petting her cat. She's holding it sensuously, and she's like, she tells her cat, she's like, I left you milk in the kitchen. Like, so that
yeah, she did.
Yeah, she goes, I left you milk in the kitchen.
Very.
And she just lets the cat go, like wander around.
In the
it's like
house,
in
in
a
her
room.
apartment.
Oh, okay.
Are
But
you
she
picturing
answers
this
the
like out in the
door,
open?
Yeah, imagine her like coming to like Fred Astaire's door and petting her
Imagine
pussy.
you
and then
paid,
it's like,
like-
all right, go. To the
Imagine
milk.
you paid like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to live in this place,
And you
you
see
see
a
a cat
cat
lady.
running around in
You
the
see a cat
hallway.
lady with a weird like sipping dish and everything.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah, yeah.
crazy. Fred Astaire would be like, lights up with what I expected.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard actually that Jenny Nicholson was invited to the opening of Towering Inferno, and her video is coming out very, very soon.
I would love to see
It's
that.
coming out in a couple of years. That's a very timely reference, honeybees.
I saw it.
So, there will be payoffs and kickbacks, Doug keeps saying. He keeps talking about that.
He won't shut up about
He
these
won't shut up.
kickbacks.
He's like, you change the specs. And he talks to, I guess, I don't know who this other guy is, but he basically is an
We
assistant.
get a tax write-off if we make it evil.
Yeah, that guy.
I love
never
the
quite
evil
got-
act they signed.
I call him first victim because I don't know his name.
Oh, you're right.
Like he comes in and he's like, hey,
It's the saddest way to go to.
I know.
Actually,
Someone's gotta be the
I think he
first.
probably lives in. Does he? He probably lives.
No,
I
he
think?
dies.
Oh shit.
They make a point of saying, oh, so and so from earlier.
He's dead.
Yeah, like middle of the movie.
Damn. Well, I would have lived. So, so let's see.
He would have parkoured out the building.
I'll tell you how he died. So then he's like, but they gave us an impossible job, you know. They're always like crunching numbers and trying to get us, you know, every cent out of us. Here's your plans anyway, so you could see where they fucked it up, I guess. So then a bunch of people start arriving because it's the party, and
So we're on the promenade room, which I'm assuming is
Promenade room.
the 130 something floor.
Yes.
Basically
Well, before
the
that, they're
top.
still like outside, and they have to. The mayor has to like cut the ribbon, and then
Oh, sorry,
they
yeah.
go to the promenade room. It's very important because the scissors are bad, which shows that they're even cutting corners on their fake scissors.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because they try to cut it. He's like, it's not going.
That's some pretty great foreshadowing right there.
And I also want to point out a woman in the crowd looks like Shelley Winters. She's there in a big coat, and she has a bouffant. Ethan would never know. But I was like, oh my God,
looking.
they probably offered that part to Shelley Winters. No, I'm
Is
kidding.
she the one in my half of the movie that's like,
No.
I called my daughter? Oh, okay.
No, she's behind them because that woman is the mayor's wife.
Oh,
And the mayor
okay,
and the
okay.
mayor's wife are there, and they give a speech. And right behind them is a woman like a fur coat with like a Shelley Winters wig
And
I
a
was like-
Tommy gun.
And I said, that's why I'm here right now. I felt the energy.
Oh man, it did feel like she should have been in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So then there was like a let's see so then they hit a switch and the whole thing lights up. It's very impressive. Obviously,
and then immediately lights on fire.
obviously using a lot of electricity,
Right.
And so it's like, I mean, the fire's already started, so I don't know what's going on because the fire started a little earlier when like OJ said there was a fire sensor going off. So it's like, I don't know why they're like, now it's even more strained, I guess.
Yeah, I wrote the fire is raging.
The fire's like getting bigger now. It's getting
see.
bigger. Sorry, audience. I don't think I explained that the fire started, but you know.
Oh,
I know you mentioned that like there was a fire thing going off, but
Ethan also
right.
forgot to mention there's this incredible like effects moment where they light up the tower.
Yeah.
Where they like light it all up and it's like golden, but that proves something later.
Oh, prove something later.
Interesting.
Okay. So then, let's see. So what the?
Oh,
fuck?
another thing Ethan forgot because he's a fool. Is
Wow, second time on the podcast. Already like,
There's two sets of elevators. There's the express elevator, which goes,
and then there's the outside elevator,
and then there's the scenic elevator. And just for everyone listening, it's literally an elevator. Think of like Final Fantasy VII, the Shinra building, that is on the outside of the building. It's like riding out, and you can see all of San Francisco, and it's
insane.
It's crazy.
Which is
also,
based
I didn't
on the
notice
Hyatt
that until
Hotel.
later.
Yeah,
I did. I was getting to that. I didn't know they introduced it so early though. Like, could you just see it? Is that what you saw?
it's in my notes, baby. So I saw it.
I was just wondering.
I literally wrote an essay on this. I have every.
Well, I wrote this line. Oh man, it's good to smooch her, which I don't know what that means. So those are my notes compared to yours.
I'll tell you when you get there.
No, I know exactly where it is. It's the what happens is this guy named Mr. Bigelow is like.
He's an American Gigolo.
He is.
It's
He's
Robert
like,
Wagner.
Robert Wagner.
Okay.
He's like, I gotta have this lady stay late. She's got to help me out. And this other lady's like, oh, I can't believe like she's making you stay late. She's like, oh, it's okay. And then they go meet in the office, and then he smooches. They start smooching.
This is his
they just
secretary.
want to smash. This is
Oh
his
my
secretary.
gosh, scandalous.
Very scandalous. So then the big party's happening. There's people singing. Some
And the
guy,
theme
Senator
song is
Parker's here.
playing where they're like, we may never live like this again. And it won an Oscar.
Really?
It's
Okay, I would've never got
Poseidon Adventure won an Oscar, and this movie won an Oscar. Both sung by Maureen McGovern. The Poseidon Adventure was.
This
"There
is
has
hysterical.
To be
What
a
a-
morning after. It was
Yeah,
it's the
I remember
same
that
exact
one.
song, basically.
Wow.
What a wild.
I love how much
What
they're
about a
trying
niche?
to keep into like the Poseidon Adventure
Yeah,
thing.
we're gonna ride off the coattails of this. Even get the same singer.
Honestly, like if you squint your eyes and ignore the fire, like it does look like the same movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like one sweaty guy trying to get people through a building.
Yeah. Two elements dynamically opposed by each other. too.
Water and fire.
Water and
That's
fire,
right.
dude.
Yeah.
Both bad for humans. So then, they're like, there's Senator Parker is getting like kind of bribed. It seems he's like, I got a special case, says Duncan, from this special wine from 1929. I might have been a whiskey or something, but he's like, oh, you want me to take all of this? He's like, we'll ship the rest back to Washington. He's like, how'd you come by a whole case? He's like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. And I'm like, you did something illegal. That's
Yep.
what you did.
Yep.
So we got old Roger,
Roger,
the son.
yeah. The
Roger is
smarmy
coming
one.
by. He's trying to flirt with Faye Dunaway, and she is
What?
not having
He's
it.
an engaged man.
He's a married
Sure,
man.
he's
no
married
married
man,
man. That's
yeah.
right, married.
She
and
ain't
she's
about it.
not into it because she just got fucked earlier today by Paul Newman. She's like,
By
I have
Paul
no
Newman.
Yeah.
reason to
She is
even look
full
at
of
you.
that man's ranch.
It's vegetarian friendly.
Undressed to get dressed.
Yeah. She's been stung by the sting.
Yeah, I mean, if I had Paul Newman, I'd be like Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah, come on. How
What the
dare
fuck,
you?
you little child? Get out of here. Paul Newman's a man.
She met Butch Cassidy and his Sundance Kid.
So Fred Astaire's talking about how boring his life was with all the money to his dates. So, I mean, he's selling it to me. He's like, I came back here because I wanted to regain my perspective and my humanity and get back to the one thing I'm good at, which is the stock market. I'm like, yeah, of course you have that big bag of stocks. Of course you're good at the stock
That's how
market.
Ethan thinks the stock market is run. It's just a big
this
suitcase
guy
full of
showing up with a
stocks.
briefcase full of stocks.
They
I
walk
mean, I don't know
around
how are stocks traded before the internet. I don't know. That's
true.
If Robinhood wasn't here, you know, GameStop.com, you know, we couldn't get there back then.
All right, can I ask you, how do you feel like Astaire is acting in this movie? Because he got the Oscar for this, for his performance
He
here.
did?
An
Yeah.
Oscar
I mean, I think he's
nomination?
good. But
I
like,
thought didn't he win the Oscar for Best Picture or for Best Actor
What
in this
world are you living in?
movie? He didn't?
if Shelley Winters didn't win, Fred Astaire did not win, but he was nominated. Wow.
Okay, he was nominated. Okay.
Yeah.
That's still wild.
I don't think he deserved it. I think they just gave it to him because he was old. He's not good in this movie.
He won a Golden Globe for whatever that means.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like not good. I just think he's fine. I don't think he just doesn't stand out.
I think he actually gives the emotional arc that all the characters are lacking.
In
the sense of he goes from one thing to the end, another thing.
I suppose so.
A cat owner. But
that's the arc we really want to see. It's just wild to me because he's so rich. Like he's just playing a rich guy.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a con man who realizes through almost dying, and what we will talk about later is he learns that he needs to be honest.
That's true.
I guess he fooled me, so that's a pretty Oscar-worthy.
He's a pretty great con man.
Yeah, Oscar nomination. He fooled Ethan. That's
They knew that. That was weird.
And then if he had showed up with like a mustache, he'd be like, "Who's this other fucking guy? He's rich too. He's got another briefcase full of stuff."
And listen, Ethan's right because fucking art teacher, she's into this all. She's like,
she is.
She's falling for him.
Yeah,
she's falling for him. So Paul Newman's like, we got to turn off all these lights, and he calls.
And
up
that's what I wanted
like,
to mention about they lit up the whole tower, and they're like, we're running at full capacity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Every generator is up and running, and Paul is like, what? Like, Paul is like, wait, who?
He tells the guy to turn it all off, and he's like, I can't do that without Duncan's permission. He's like, just do it, and I take all the blame for it. He's like, all right, I guess. So I think he does it. So they're checking out what's going on floor 81. He's like, there's something going on, and they go, and there's we got Paul Newman, Doug, behind his friend who first victim, and first victim is foreshadowing. He's running up, and he's running up a little bit, and he sees smoke coming out of a door. And of course, like any person would do, he's like, I'm going to open this door. And he opens the door. Backdraft comes. He gets lit on fire.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It's intense. He falls on the ground and doesn't stop, drop, and roll. Is all I'm saying. He just kind of laid there.
He didn't just touch the door handle to check if it was hot. Didn't stop, drop, and roll.
He just did the thing. I think at this point, OJ appeared and was like, oh, shit. And also helped.
Just to know, at this point, the fire department is on its way.
Yeah,
like there's
they did call the fire
shot of them
early.
like going down the pole and jumping the truck,
getting hot, getting sexy.
Exactly.
It's fucking hot.
Yeah, oiling up.
That's how they slide down the poles, right?
That's right. They slide down the pole completely naked.
So they phone the fire department. They start showing up. The smoke alarm's going off. Smoke's pouring out. He goes to open it. It's lit on fire. He doesn't stop, drop, and roll. He gets some real bad burns on him. And, OJ's like, hey, call an ambulance. Paul
literally
Newman,
engulfed by flames.
There.
He's like sunburns. Like his entire body is engulfed by flames.
His entire body is engulfed, but it seemed like it was all on the outside.
He could probably get through it.
I'm just saying, he didn't stop and roll. He just sat there for a while and let it burn on him. And everyone had to go get sheets from a curtain or something.
Yeah, OJ had to get a knife and try to cut the fire off of him.
Honestly, probably would have helped.
He's like, I need gloves to put this thing out.
It's too hot. So luckily there's a fire hose on the same floor. So some other guys
Duncan
there
didn't cut that many corners.
No. So he goes and gets the fire hose and just starts spraying the room with the fire in it. I'm like, all right, we're fucking good.
Done.
That's
Movie
it.
over.
We don't got any other issues.
Yeah.
I guess not though, because he's spraying there for a while, and it's just like Paul Newman kind of walks over and is like, that's not really doing anything, is it? They don't say it, but you can tell his expression's
this is good water.
This is not working.
This is that cheap water.
Yeah. Let's see. So he calls down. He's like, hey man, so you got to evacuate people because
Paul Newman calls Duncan.
The
party. He's like, where are you?
Where are you? You got to come down to this party. He's like, no, there's a fire. Will Giddin got burned. This is all bad because of the faulty wiring and stuff. There could be more fires popping up everywhere because of the faulty wiring. Yeah, because just wiring's garbage, especially because we just spent a big current through it. And Duncan's like, it's fine, is it contained? It seems like it's
he's like, the 81st won't affect us up on the 131st
Which I'm like, fire goes up, dude.
And also it's going to stop you from going down, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait.
Fucking
I mean, wait until you see their early attempts on trying to evacuate this party.
Oh, it's crazy.
He's not thinking.
So then Duncan, he's like, "Come on up with your dinner jacket. The party's waiting." And he's just like, "I'm
Let's party.
not doing that." So then the firefighters are chatting to each other, and they're like, "Oh, where's that address? Oh, it's the big tower." And they're just like, "Have you ever fought in a tower before? Let's just hope it's on the first floor. It's terrible."
Oh no!
Oh man! So then suddenly Steve McQueen's here.
Steve McQueen, baby.
This is where I need to stop Ethan until Mike.
Oh yes.
What I realized. So the movie began, and I was like doing my notes, and I wasn't looking at credits, and I just assumed I love Paul Newman. I love him. But I didn't have like a mental image of who Steve McQueen was in my head. So the moment he showed up, I was like, oh, it's because I've always thought of this as a Steve McQueen movie. And I was like, oh, it's Steve McQueen. So all my notes, I'm like, Steve does this and Steve does that and Steve does this. And at one point I looked at my boyfriend and I said, you know what? It's never occurred to me how much Steve McQueen looks like Paul Newman.
Yeah.
And he just didn't answer because we're 10 years into a relationship and he doesn't listen to me. So and then when Steve McQueen showed up, I was like, fuck.
It is kind of crazy, like, how much they look alike. And they're both basically, like, on different ends of the spectrum of, like, how they're trying to solve the problem, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
Like, Paul Newman is basically like the, like, John McClane in the building trying to get everybody out.
Yeah.
And then you got Steve McQueen outside the building trying to help everybody as
Who
well
was actually
from the outside,
doing
basically.
things right in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he is the hero of this movie.
He's
And
not
I love
trying to
that he gets
save
a late
anyone.
entrance. He gets like an hour.
I
into
know.
the movie.
And also, not only like just a late entrance, he got a late entrance in like a fancy red like Corvette looking
Yeah.
thing, while everyone else is in a fire truck. And
It's
he's like, "I'm
basically
the
the
chief."
Ghostbusters car
Yeah.
painted red.
And so he's like immediately somehow. Okay, I feel like there's a scene missing because I feel like suddenly Paul Newman is here on the ground, and the fire seem to have escaped and has gone out of the room. And I feel like there's some scene missing of just like, hey, how did Paul Newman get down here? Because like last I heard, he was supposed to be going up to the top. Anyway,
answer this, honey.
He's still below the fire.
yeah, but they're literally on the ground floor now, and he meets Paul Newman on the ground. Or Paul Newman meets Steve McQueen on the
there
ground.
is an express elevator in this building.
I know, it just felt so quick.
I know.
I was just surprised.
Yeah, it's an express elevator.
Oh, fun fact that I forgot to mention: when the firemen are driving to the building, they're like, "What building is this?" One of them, I think, is Paul Newman's son, who he hired,
Oh, during that scene. Okay.
who apparently several years later would die of a drug overdose.
No!
I know, but like this was him doing his like nepo babies, or like being like, "Oh, you can be in my movie."
Yeah, you can hang out in the fire
Did he make
truck.
an impression?
But he doesn't. But he.
So anyway, he says...
His performance is like, I hope it's not the big building.
Oh, he's not that bad. Steve McQueen asks, like, all right, what's the situation here? What are your plans? And he's like, oh, they're luckily 2 floors below where the fire started. He's like, okay, great. We'll set up shop there. So they get up there, and I'm like, I didn't know you could just hang out in a building on fire, and that was like a cool thing for firefighters to do.
It was the 70s.
Do you not work in big buildings?
No, we don't have big buildings
in New York
here.
City, when we did fire tests in big buildings, they'd be like, if the fire's on this floor, we'll evacuate 2 floors above, 2 floors below, but we won't like evacuate the full building. That's what they would tell us.
Really? They don't evacuate the whole
It's a
building?
whole thing. Like, I mean, if it's intense, they will. But then, like, we would do these fire meetings, and they would say something like that, where, like, if there's a fire, and, they're coming into this sight unseen, they're like, we'll evacuate this, and we'll evacuate that. So I think that's what they're kind of thinking.
Interesting. I had no idea, because I didn't really, like, this really put into perspective for me something I never thought of, which is like, wow, fire in a big building is, like, not just, like, it's, like, super hard to fight. Like, he tells... Steve McQueen tells Paul Newman, like, we can't really fight anything efficiently above 7 stories. Like, we're gonna have to just do kind of some basic stuff here. Like,
Yeah.
Because imagine,
Well, and
like,
especially,
that idea,
like,
the ladder only goes so high.
and then, like, getting
Yeah.
people out, like, near my half of the movie.
Like, it
I'm
makes
like,
sense.
I'm like, just fucking get them out. I'm like, well, how the fuck do you get them out? You
they're
can't,
so
like,
tall up.
Yeah,
They're,
like, you can't just get a
there's
helicopter
There's
up
no
there.
ladder you can just throw up there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is crazy, but yeah. So yeah, he's like, there's it's kind of funny because like they start talking about like, you guys always build up. Steve McQueen says, you guys always build up. Stop building up so high. And it's just like, I kind of resent them. Like, build tall buildings. Let's go. All right, it's not enough housing in
America, fuck yeah.
We're in a housing crisis right now. All right, we need to build up.
And now in New York City, we have buildings I think that are this tall. Like they're terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, there definitely are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can build up as long as you're building safely up.
That's the
I
thing,
think that's
right?
it's sort of funny. Like, I wonder how much of this movie is like. People saw like, wow, they're building really tall buildings. That's a problem, It's not just that they're building buildings tall; it's that they're building buildings tall and unsafely.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're cutting corners. Yeah,
True.
So then he starts asking, like, do you have any weird stuff? Like any manufacturers up here? He starts talking to
Any
OJ.
weird stuff.
Well, he's like, what manufacturers do you have like above these floors? It's like, we don't think we have anything. He's like, well, listen, if you got like a linen factory up there that catches on fire, it's like cyanide gas. We have all these things we have to worry about. And
we have that gasoline factory.
I hope it doesn't get that tall. But he's like, hey, Paul Newman's like, hey, just to let you know, Chief, there's a whole party going on like the under 30th floor. I tried to get them out. 300 people. They don't seem to listen. Can you go in there?
They don't seem to listen.
He's like, all right, I'll go try to talk to Duncan and see if I can tell him how serious this is. And it's just like, it's just so weird that they're just like right next, like 2 floors above this building, and they're like, the building is on fire, and they're just like, all right, well, we're just sitting here trying to fight it. And they just matter of factly go up there and start trying to fight. So then Steve McQueen goes up to the top floor, or to the party floor, I guess it's not the top floor, and takes off his firefighter outfit, not to cause a panic. And just meets Duncan and says, hey, you got to get people out of here calmly.
And I just have to say, Steve McQueen looks so cute in his little white shirt and his little
white shirt.
So cute.
It's made me clear how little like Steve McQueen I've actually seen. Like, I really need to see like The Great Escape, and
this may be the only movie I've ever seen him in, but I love him.
He's great.
Love
him.
Yeah. He's a great guy, I think. Oh, I'm not gonna say that.
I don't know. He's a great looking guy.
He's a great looking guy. We'll go with that. I can't deny that. Hey.
YouTube just ruined the character from Indiana Jones that I always loved. Whatever his name is. Salah.
Oh, Salah?
Yeah, Salah. I was like, I didn't know anything about that. Now I hate him.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Big shame.
Thank you.
So then, so he's like, they basically don't get a reassurance. He's like, there's no way a fire can reach us all the way up here. And he's like, I don't know. Even if so, can you like try to move the party to like the bottom floor or something so we could fight the fire? And he's like, all right, I will. I guess I'll do that.
Oh my God. Like it's a problem.
And then Duncan goes to his son-in-law and is like, did you change anything in the specs?
Yeah, and that's what you have to understand. At this point, Duncan thinks that everything's up to code. Like, he's like, I'm opening the safest building ever. But my daughter married a, fuckboy.
Fucking asshole
when
idiot.
That guy's like, listen, I had to meet a quota, bro. How else are you supposed to make me, or how else are you supposed to fit the budget, right? I had to cut corners, basically. He basically says that. He's like, I'm going to hang you out to dry if this fire actually turns into something.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Oh, shit. I'm curious.
Foreshadowing.
So people are kind of, like, he announces it. He says, we're going to go, there's a fire 54 is below us right now. We're going to move folks down to the lobby.
Go down the lobby, and we won't be late for dinner.
Yes. Dinner will happen on time, I assure you.
We need to make brunch.
So people are just mildly panicking because obviously a fire in a building, very scary.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Fred Astaire, like, it's funny because like Fred Astaire's lady friend, the teacher, just immediately abandons him, and it's because she wants to go to tell the deaf lady because she can't hear anything.
Right.
If there's a fire. And also she's much closer to the fire than they are. So suddenly the fire gets real fucking big. It explodes while all these people are trying to, put it out. And, it explodes on all sides of the building. And it's like, oh, now it's real.
Oh, no.
And they basically have to tell people, hey, don't use the express elevator anymore.
Yeah.
Because the electronics might get fried and it might trip a thing where...
he basically says, like, it'll trip it that it will open up on the door, like the fire door. The fire
open up on the door wherever the fire is happening.
And everyone's like, there's an express elevator?
Yeah.
Let's use it
immediately.
Yeah, well, then he gets the call, and Duncan's like, no, we can't use this anymore. We're going to use the outside one. And then the elevator opens up, and everyone just piles in anyway.
And
he's like, oh, fucking all right.
And at this point, Roger, Ethan said this, but Roger is really confronting Duncan about, why this building's cheap. You're aware, but you're not taking credibility.
Right. You're not taking responsibility.
You're not looking into like why we had to make those cutbacks.
Yeah. Right.
Or like what the consequences were of that, of me trying to fit within the budget.
And at
I
this
wonder if
point,
he had come to him and been like, "Yo, we need to pay a bit extra in order to like make this thing even better than code." If we would have like wavered, you know, I don't know.
Maybe.
We don't know. We'll never know because it's also fictional.
Yeah. So then, let's see. He makes an announcement to use the scenic elevators. People use express one. Okay. So they're losing control of the fire. And then it's starting to overtake the floor. And then, of course, right when it starts overtaking the floor, the express elevator comes down, opens up, fire goes right in there, just goes right into the elevator. And then, so people at the party are waiting for the elevator to come back up, and it comes back up, and it opens, and there's a dude just comes out on, like, basically burnt to crisp, and just a bunch of bodies.
That's awesome.
Inside the elevator, there's only one guy alive. Yeah, he's like, oh, looks like there's a fire down
and
there.
At this point, the fire can be seen from like outside the building because the explosion and stuff like that.
Huge.
That's awesome.
I don't know if at this point there's 2 sections of fire yet, because
all I know is you can like they show like a shot from afar and it's like coming out the windows.
So then we got Mr. Bigelow and his secretary. I'm sure you forgot about them.
I did forget all about Mr. Bigelow and his
basically,
secretary.
I could sum it up in a quick sentence, which is they die.
Oh,
no,
how?
You can't go just like that, you fool. There is a moment. There are beats. They fuck in the bedroom. And then they're like, there's smoke coming to the apartment. So then they run back to the bedroom and use towels to cover up the seal. And Robert Wagner is like, don't worry, darling. This is okay. We're going to be good. And then of course, they wait a while. And then the room is like engulfed in flames. And Robert Wagner is like, goes and gets some towels, wets them, and puts them around his head. And he's like, I used to run track. I'll come back for you, and it's going to be great. And she says something like, I'm just a useless character. And then he runs out into the burning room and gets like 4 feet and then lights on fire.
Okay, hold on. He got 4 feet, not even 4 feet, and he immediately bumps into a desk on fire. Like, he doesn't even, like, run and, like, something falls and hits him. He just bumps into the thing, first thing in front of him, and just like, oh, and then he just burns to death.
Yeah, and he just bursts into flames, and it's so ridiculous because they have all this build-up that he's going to, like, do something. And then she dies a little bit later, but, like, she's in the room, it starts to burst into flames, and then she goes out there and just immediately sets on fire. And she runs around on fire, and she's wearing like a little just shirt and like her little hair, and then she falls out the window. She
throws a thing to break the glass out the window. And then jumps out of it.
Yeah, and then she jumps out the window, a burning body falling.
We see several people fall out of buildings in my half of the movie as well, and I always want to get a shot of the ground, like people walking by, going to going home from work, like just seeing people like fucking like splat.
Yeah, they even show the firefighters on the ground. They just don't.
Never see. Yeah, I want to see the reaction. I want to see them turn into pancakes on the ground.
What's this?
One of them like throws a penny out of their like pocket to see like if they'll beat it or not. Yeah.
What was this movie rated? I feel like it was PG-13.
I feel like it was PG. The PG-13 didn't exist yet.
It's probably PG then.
Yeah, it's probably PG.
Very hard PG though. Let me tell
Kids
you.
can watch a man, Robert Wagner, burst into flames. Nothing disturbing about that.
That's true. That's true. So, we got OJ's gonna go save the deaf lady technically not a deaf lady, but the other lady,
right?
And tries to rescue her with Paul Newman. The teacher then is there trying to get in. OJ saves the lady. Good thing
that's the first time that's ever happened.
I know. Good thing it's not his wife.
Yeah.
And so then Paul Newman's like, oh, I gotta save the kids, and he goes and rescues the kid with his dumbass headphones on still.
Oh my god.
Mentioned
you'd think
earlier,
he'd be able to smell the fire.
Right, you'd think that?
Yeah.
Well, then he goes out and is like, hey kid, you okay? He's like, my sister. Oh my gosh. And so he has to go back in, and he goes and gets his sister, and she's fine. And then there's a whole thing about that. And then, so they try to escape basically from there. Let's see. So then they're trying to figure out on the top floor there, the party's still going on. And they're like, well, this is taking a long time to get through the scenic elevator, which is how they've all been going out now. The scenic elevator we mentioned earlier that I did not see until this moment.
It's scenic.
It's scenic.
Yeah.
They're like, well, let's try taking the stairs, right? Because like sends like the fit people down the stairs because like, this is going to take forever.
Right.
because it's a very small elevator. I think it can only be like 12 people at a time or something.
12 people will fit in the scenic elevator. Yes.
Oh, I can't believe I remembered that.
Yeah, good. Can we try to game sense a chat for Ethan Miller?
It's a little reference there for some people.
Yeah,
So
check out our Discord.
So then we got so they're trying to go down the stairs, but one of them is completely covered in smoke and fire. So it's like clearly we can't go down that one.
No.
And the other one they can't open up at all.
No.
It's just like not working. And so they get even Carlos over and they're like, "Hey, try to open this up," and it's still not budging. That's again the first
Why
time.
is Carlos helping?
I don't know. He's just there and he goes,
Strong.
"Hey, can't get it open."
He's just
he's
strong.
He's getting a SAG card is what he's doing because he has a
He's
one
cheap
line of
labor.
He doesn't
dialogue.
get paid
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
he has a line. You know.
Exactly. And then there's a moment where what the fuck? Not Paul Newman, the other one. I can't think of his name.
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen is
Robert Redford.
is climbing up. I was thinking that for a second. He's
Yeah.
climbing up. He's got this heavy ass outfit on. He's like, oh, why don't they make their survival suits light like they do for football players?
Mm-hmm.
And his friend next to him or coworker's like, who pays to see us play?
Yeah, that's right. And they look in the camera.
They look at
Pay
the
us
camera right
more.
as, pay us more money.
Yeah.
American flag waves by.
I wrote he does look a mess.
He does look pretty rough. And I'm like, the movie's not even halfway through, and you're looking pretty rough. So OJ checks residential areas. He opens up a door and finds the lady's cat and grabs it. So that's the last we see of him in my half. And then Paul Newman and the kids are like going down the stairs. They're taking the stairs down. And he's like, what's that smell? And then boom, the entire stairs explode.
Oh my
Like,
God.
And there's a huge crater, and he almost like falls. Paul Newman does. He grabs onto like the railing that's kind of like fallen off a little bit, and
Yeah,
he
it's
swings
very
over
intense. There's like a
It's
gap, and there's
very
like,
very intense.
the handrail is like all mangled.
It's a really cool set, honestly.
Is it Paul Newman too? Do you see his face?
I'm pretty sure it is, but also it's pretty easy to fake it because it's not like a real. It's not like a real.
Guy.
It's not like a real hole down there, you know.
I guess, but he is holding onto a handrail.
Hey, that's true. He does. Sure.
It's pretty impressive.
So he did do that, and yeah. So it's a whole thing where he gets down, and then he has to get all the kids down too. So he has to work with the
Teacher.
Well, not the teacher yet. He gets the boy down, and he gets the girl down, and then he's like, "All right, the teacher's gonna come next."
Right.
But that's not revealed in my half. And then I think is that kind of it. And then we get to your half.
It sounds about right.
I don't think I'm missing anything.
Honeybees, are we missing anything up until the lady swings to her side?
All I wrote is the art teacher screams, "Oh my God!" and it's really funny.
Well,
It's a long scene.
The art teacher eventually makes it to the other side, meeting Paul Newman and the annoying children.
They are annoying. I didn't mention that.
They are annoying and gross. The little girl's gross. And I just wrote down, holy shit, the fire is so close to the actors. I don't know how they shot this movie. Is it in a studio? The smoke and the fire is truly insane. An explosion happens in the stairwell, so people cannot escape down this way. They are now like, this stairwell is basically blocked off because if they were to go any further, they'd have to walk through fire, basically. Steve McQueen speaks to a Navy guy who will help with air rescue. So a pretty great Navy guy. He's got connections to the air.
So confusing.
Yeah, I wrote down that Steve McQueen is being sarcastic about how difficult it's going to be to save everybody.
I wrote that
because
he's being passive aggressive. He's like,
Oh man.
that's a better word for it, I think, because like basically the Navy guy's like, "Oh, we're gonna bring in a helicopter," and Steve McQueen is like, huh, "Yeah, if the wind will allow," and I'm like, "All right, fucking, let's just chill. We don't know what's gonna happen yet." So here's one thing that I don't think it's really been explained, because when I was watching my half of the movie, I see that, it seems like they're so close to getting in the promenade room. You see like Paul Newman, the teacher, and the two kids. They're about to get in, and yet someone has inexplicably spilled a bunch of fucking cement next to the door.
That's the last thing I would have expected to be like blocking them in.
Yeah,
this is why
and
Paul
it's
was
just
on
dried.
vacation. Like, this is what
I guess
was
so.
missed.
I was so sure this was going to be explained like some dude was like pouring cement and then like got a heart attack.
It does
and,
feel like that
It
kind of
was
movie
Faye
though, where they
Dunaway.
like foreshadow
She's that
everything.
bitchy.
Faye Dunaway.
She was like,
Yeah.
you're all gonna die.
She has a
here."
thing with cement.
And then she ended up at the party.
If you're not in the bedroom fucking me in your office, you're not allowed in the promenade room. I'm going to put a bunch of fucking dried cement in the doorway.
I love the idea. What if she was just like, she causes chaos while he's gone?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
just so miserable
She's like,
about her
"Tee-hee."
unless she's getting. She just starts doing weird shit, putting cement, putting a bunch of flammable stuff in one closet, just goofy stuff because, she's just missing her man.
Won't matter here.
No more dry cement. And the thing that upsets me so much about this now, knowing that they don't actually explain why the cement is there, because at first I'm like, oh, this must have been a really great setup. We must have had a whole scene where some guy just pours the cement and just doesn't let it dry in a flat way. No, it's just there. It's just another obstacle to keeping them from being able to escape easily. So in order to get the kids and the teacher to safety, Paul Newman has to climb through the vents. And there's one moment where Paul Newman is above a really long shaft.
Is it just Paul Newman?
It is just Paul Newman because the kids and the teacher, they are not skilled enough to be able to climb through shafts.
He lets them
vents.
know it's a straight drop down. You aren't coming.
Basically.
Oh,
it's a straight drop down into a very poorly painted matte painting. So he has to climb above a matte painting in order to get through everything. We cut away from him during this moment
I'll miss his shaft, I'll tell you.
Where I'm massively distracted by how fake the shaft looks. It's come on. Then immediately the generator is blown. This part is fucking absurd, where there's 3 guys standing around a generator just sparking, and there's fucking
the bottom floor. Is this the bottom floor?
I don't think it is. I think it's higher up. I think it's. Correct me if I'm wrong, honeybees, but I think this is a pretty
I don't
high
quite
up,
know
right?
what level this room is on.
But it's based.
I assume generators at the bottom, but that's just me.
It's like Jackie Gleason and Columbo are arguing at each other about why.
I feel like this is the bottom floor, but maybe I'm wrong.
You might be right, but either way, they're just standing there watching it spark, and they're just I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm fucking put it out, you
turn it
weirdos.
off.
How
It's
could
ridiculous.
This happen
But
on opening day.
Yeah. Just our luck. We're gonna get fired.
I can't wait to get retired tomorrow.
And so all this happens, and then immediately all the lights go out. Which means the lights going out and the elevators have stopped, slowing the firemen down even more from reaching the fire. They're on the way up in an elevator. So the firemen have to climb out of their elevator. They're also in the elevator shaft. And just as they get out of the elevator, they see a fucking fireman on fire falling down the elevator shaft next to them.
That's a little ominous.
And they're right. And they're like,
Bad
okay,
sign.
well, we have to get people out of here. We have to protect them and save them. What we're going to do is we're going to attach a bunch of rope to this elevator, and we're going to have it go all the way down to the bottom of the elevator shaft. And there's one newbie fireman who's just like, I can't do it. I can't do it, Sarge. I can't do this. I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fail. I can't do this. And Steve McQueen is like, okay, if you think you're going to fall, then you got to go first, because then you won't take the rest of us with you. Oop. And it's such a great moment.
It's a moment. He's oh, shit.
Yeah, oh, fine. Okay. All right. I guess I got to go. So he does it, and wouldn't you know it, that gives him just enough motivation to actually make it all the way down without falling.
Good for him.
It's great. It's a great little learning moment. So what happens next? So I mentioned also they mentioned that there is a freight elevator that's working on auxiliary power. I never see this fucking elevator.
I wrote where? I don't know.
I don't know where
Do they
it
use
fucking
it at all?
is.
Is it used? Or
They mention it. I think it's an easy way of getting characters where they need to go, basically.
Okay, because I was like,
it's a MacGuffin. If I'm
it truly is. I never see anyone use this fucking auxiliary elevator. Newman climbs out of the vent, and I wrote down, it's really weird. He climbs out of the vent, and he's in this room full of giant metal drums and piping. And I'm like, this feels like this is like a nuclear power plant or something. What is he doing in here?
It's Chekhov's gun. It's we'll be back later.
Yeah, we need to establish that this exists 2 floors above the promenade.
So we
room.
mentioned earlier about training for fires and things, or fire drills and stuff like that. Is it safe to use an elevator during the fire? Because I feel like it's not, right?
It isn't. It honestly shocked me how often they were like, well, let's just use the elevator to get to higher. Although I will say, maybe we should reach out to honeybees about this. Is this something that you should do if you're in a large building?
No. You fool. No, you should not be taking the elevator.
I assumed not.
You should be taking the stairs, but this building, it's hoity-toity. They don't follow the rules, so
it's also very big. You would be running up and down.
Well, they were saying that only fit people can go down these stairs, basically.
Yeah.
No, you should not be taking the stairs in an elevator. I worked in a building that they would do the fire thing, like the fire inspection, and they would say, like, in a building in New York City, like a tall building, and this is not this building, like, if there's a fire, you evacuate like the floor above and the floor below, but everyone else stands in place. So like
truly nuts.
And it's so like that's why they're not evacuating everyone right away. They're like,
but even if you were to evacuate, don't fucking take the elevator.
that too. Don't take the elevator.
Yeah. So finally, Paul Newman makes his way into the promenade room. We cut to the women and children. They are making shadow puppets while waiting for Paul Newman to get back to them. And then the firemen arrive, and they decide to blow the door down with plastic C4.
Yeah,
which is great. And the door opens. They blow it open. Everything's fine. And I mentioned the music swells because it feels like a very
I wrote teacher hugs Fred, Paul hugs Faye. Will there be a happy ending?
Will they? And it really does, because up until now, in my half of the movie, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong.
It has kind of been that way.
And it's made things so much harder for everyone else. This is the one moment that says it's actually like everyone is finally together. Everything's going to go great.
Every wrong corner that was cut has been cut.
Exactly. So we see Duncan. I wrote down, for some reason, my notes, I wrote down Duncan, cool guy with glasses. I don't know why I thought this guy looked cool.
Well, you were thinking about him in his other role in Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I was like, that cool guy who was in the pool.
Yeah. The pool guy.
The pool cool guy. He's like, all right, there's no way that anyone's going to get down this stairway. This stairway is very dangerous. And Roger, the smarmy guy, his son-in-law, ignores this advice immediately and plans to go down this stairway, even though it's dangerous. And his wife, the Duncan's daughter, is like, don't do this. This is so dangerous. We were just told not to go down this way. And Roger says this awful line. He says, "You don't need to wait for permission to save yourself." And I'm like, fuck you. This thing absolutely goes with this whole... Yeah, right? So that's what I was thinking. Like, fucking die, you piece of shit. So he fucking runs down the stairway, and immediately a fucking explosion happens. And he
blasts him against the wall.
Immediately blasts him against the wall. He is surrounded by fire, and he has to turn around and return to the promenade room, tail between his legs.
I think. But then he comes up.
That's what I was hoping he would be dead, but sadly he doesn't die. Sadly, he's still alive. And he returns to the promenade room covered in soot, and his wife is like, this is the first I'm hearing about this too. He returns coughing, covered in soot, and he starts pouring himself a drink. And his wife comes up and she's like, "I'm sure you feel responsible for this." And I'm like, this is the first I'm learning that, like, oh shit, this was a decision. Like, I thought this was like the Titanic, where it was like a freak accident. No, this was he is the cause of this. He's the reason that all this is happening.
Yeah, he put the iceberg there. Yeah,
right. He's the one that he's the one that froze the ice.
Yeah.
And also made the ship so that it could easily be like sunk. You know,
100%.
This is where I'm first learning about this. And he just brushes her off, and he just wants to fucking drink and not be dealt with.
I'm gonna get quietly drunk.
Yeah. He's like, all I need is this, and he's like pours himself another drink.
Hell yeah, brother.
And then we cut to the kids who were in the hallway with Paul Newman, and they're just drinking milkshakes.
Carlos makes them fun little cocktails. Mocktails.
Cocktail milkshakes. Yeah, mocktails.
Good for Carlos. Can't open that door, but he can make a mean milkshake.
Carlos is a good guy. Yeah. We cut back to Fred Astaire. He tries to admit to...
Fred Astaire was in this movie.
Fred Astaire's in the movie. He tries to admit to the teacher lady that he's poor and that he's a con artist. But she's like...
What made him do that? He's just like...
I think because at this point, he's like, we're all going to fucking die. I don't want to die with a guilty conscience. And I also think it's because he's caught feelings. I think he actually cares about
also, her. All his bonds are on fire now. His
yeah,
stock
that's
notes,
true.
they're all burnt up now.
Fake bonds. Yeah.
There's only one printer who will print those for me.
And he fully reveals. He's like, I was planning on tricking you. I was planning on getting you to buy these fake bonds for a fake business that doesn't exist. I was fully planning to scam you.
Okay, I thought they were on just a straight up date. Can you imagine like going on a date and then someone's like, all right, so you want to buy these? I bought one bond with me. Are you interested?
You ever get into crypto?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. No, and she doesn't give a fuck.
She's like, oh, honey, I'm horny. Let's go.
Yeah. It's truly crazy to
Hot
me
for
that
teacher.
she just like waves it away. I'm like, if I had learned that this dude only like went to dinner with me in order to sell me junk bonds, I would have been like, it's a lot. It's a lot to like.
Is this where Honeybees also you started crossing out feminist movie?
Yeah, this is where I was like,
the first strike.
I was like, you know what? Some women just like to settle. she represents the old guard.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's why she gets what's coming to her.
Now knowing that actor basically left like the acting profession to like marry a millionaire, I'm like, you know,
she's like, I'm living a dream here right now.
Yeah. So Paul Newman goes to the phone, talks to Steve McQueen downstairs, and he says, "Will Giddings is dead.
Yeah, this is where we
died
learned
20
the
minutes
first
ago."
victim died.
I didn't know who Will Giddings was,
But I
was
realized,
like, "Oh no!"
I realize he's like the 15th victim at this point.
Yeah, but he's
not the first.
Well, I mean, he's
the
the
first, but he's definitely.
Well, he did take the first fire
Yeah,
hit. To
he
be
got
fair.
the first hit, but he died.
He got burned first. He just probably died later.
So this is where Newman goes to Duncan, and he accuses him of cutting corners. He's like, "Why'd you cut corners instead of cutting floors?" I'm like, "Ooh, that's a good line.
Yeah.
That's a great line." And Duncan says, "Look, I made my choices, and they all are within the fire code." And Newman shrugs it off, and he's like, "That's bullshit. You know that's fucking bullshit. You know that just because you're within the fire code doesn't fucking mean anything."
We established that earlier. It's kind of interesting to bring it back up. In case you forgot, audience.
It's great. And then he says this weird line. I hope either one of you can explain this. He says, "What do they call it when you kill people?" And then Duncan like looks at him intensely. What the fuck does that mean?
What? Wait,
Yeah, I don't.
Paul Newman looks at Duncan as if in a mic drop moment, and he goes, "What do they call it when you kill people?" And I'm like, they call it murder.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. I missed that.
I don't know what this line means.
All I
Either
wrote
way,
was
thought this
Paul has seen all the cuts and is surprised that this place is a death trap.
It's great. It's great. So now we learn that the central core has blown up.
Yeah.
And it is too windy for the copters. There's a big explosion, massive explosion. So what they're going to do is they're going to land a copter on the roof of the building, and they're going to try to evacuate people that way.
Okay.
I'm like, that's a fucking genius idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's obviously what you should be doing.
If the wind doesn't pick up.
If the wind doesn't pick up, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm like, I guess, not a lot of people can get into a helicopter, but like probably about like 10 people can fit comfortably inside of a copter and get them in and out, laying them on like a nearby building.
Sure.
Pretty good move.
Yeah, there was a moment earlier where Duncan was looking like despondently at the like building across the way.
Oh yeah,
like,
what is it called? The leftover building or something like that?
I don't know. The B plot. I don't know.
Yeah,
The B-plot building?
the chode.
The building not on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, the second best married.
Wish my building wasn't like that. No.
So then we get to this older couple, which I now learn is like the mayor and his wife.
And she is distraught. She said, "This is my moment, and I will take it."
This is. I was like, "Is Shelley Winters here?"
Yeah, she's like,
and she's.
You go on, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, honey. Yeah.
She's just like, I called her. I reached out for my daughter, and she did not pick up. What will we do if we die? It was like a whole moment. I was like, you don't have a character. You don't have an arc.
I thought there was a character because she's like, what if she doesn't know where the keys to the safety deposit box are?
Yeah. She's like, she can't reach her daughter.
The whole thing.
Or I
I
wrote
like those other two characters.
I wrote because it's ambiguous enough. She's like, I can't reach there. And I was like, the mayor's wife is despondent. She can't reach her daughter or her third. I don't know. Maybe they're the throuple. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they could be. We don't know. She never says daughter. She never says daughter.
She says,
she just says
her.
She says that she's still so young, so it could be a mistress.
Yeah.
It could be a throuple.
Nice.
I said,
so
why is she
the
getting
announcement
the
is made.
scene? Like, where's Faye
I know
Dunaway?
it comes out of nowhere. So we get a scene, or basically it's God, this. I hated this scene. This is one of the worst scenes in the whole fucking movie. So the announcement is made. Women and children first. We're going to grab all the women, about 10 women, and we're going to bring them to the roof.
It's just like the Titanic.
And we're going to put them on the helicopter, and we're going to bring them out.
Yeah.
So fucking Faye Dunaway is a part of them. It's a bunch of other women. They're brought up to the roof by Paul Newman, and the helicopter has not landed yet. The helicopter is still landing. And these fucking I don't want this to sound sexist, but these fucking women, these two women hysterically run out onto the helipad, and the copter has to like turn, and it immediately fucking crashes.
Oh!
And lights on fire. And the entire roof of the building is now on fire.
I wrote back to square one.
Oh my god!
It's so much worse now because now you can't light anything on the roof, and now
there's even more fire.
There's more fire now, and also these two pilots are dead. Yeah.
They were like, ah, it was terrible.
Should have just crushed them women.
How do we make this any worse? It was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, you couldn't have waited 5 minutes. Like, oh,
that's a disaster, Mike. That's a disaster.
I couldn't help but laugh. Like, I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was ridiculous to me. Like, you fucking idiots. You couldn't have just fucking waited for the fucking helicopter to land. Either way. So that happened. So now they gotta break the windows of the promenade room and like fucking shoot in a fucking like a what is it? Like a
zip line?
Like a zip line.
Yeah, a zip line. Essentially
Whoa.
a pulley system.
In
to
a
the
little
other building,
cage, and they're gonna have to evacuate people one by one in a tiny little cage.
Is the scenic elevator still working?
The scenic elevator
the one thing
is-
that Mike has
Go ahead.
skipped over is Paul Newman goes down to the elevator mechanic room. Don't ask me.
I
how.
have yet to bring this up, honey.
Okay.
This is next on my list. Newman has thought of the elevator, and so he is testing another idea where he goes down and he realizes the elevator has a gravity brake system.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's like-
And in order to test this, he goes to his fuck office basically to test all this. Right? Is that right?
I don't know where he goes, but he like cuts some wires, puts a pen in a thing, and swirls it around. And he's like,
Yeah, I didn't
I've
understand all
activated the
this.
gravity brake.
Right, and he goes in and he's like 12 people,
Go to-
including the women the women and children that we were originally going to evacuate, as well as one fireman.
Yeah.
Is going to get in that scenic elevator, and that's all, because it can only go down. It can't come back up again.
I love the idea that like those two hysteric women the same two of them run in there immediately.
No, they're dead.
I just push the button. They're like, ah!
Helicopter.
And they just start fucking just smashing everything in there,
when I-
breaking the windows.
What I do love is Faye tries to give away her spot to like a barmaid.
Yes.
And Paul
Newman
Newman's
says,
like,
no.
you die.
Yeah.
You die. The Oscar winner
Yeah.
lives.
No one trusts.
Yeah,
No one
he's
trusts
so
it.
great. And then he's like, I want you to be safe, Faye Dunaway, so that I can focus on the matter at hand. And I'm imagining the bar woman like, I kind of want to go down.
I have children. I have a mortgage.
Yeah, like we don't know what that woman's life is like. But Paul Newman didn't give a fuck about her. So then Fred Astaire says his goodbye.
Yeah, he says,
to
I'll
teacher
never let
lady.
you go. I think this is important. He says,
Right.
I'll never let you go anywhere again without me. Now go get on that elevator without me.
Yeah, exactly.
Still a
Exactly.
con man. Still a con man.
And so the lady in the pink dress
Yes,
says
the
goodbye to
mayor's
her
wife.
husband. It's the mayor's wife. And the elevator doors are closed. Very slowly it descends. It's actually a very intense.
It's really in a
Isn't it?
great shot because it's like Faye
Yeah.
in blackout background, and it's this
Yes.
very slow.
And they're all lit from above.
Yeah, they're-
it looks like the opening of the Bohemian Rhapsody music video.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very beautiful,
yeah,
very
it's
intense.
very intense.
It's really great. So we get a line is shot from a helicopter into the promenade room. The line is tied up, and then all of a sudden there is a massive fucking explosion, and the outside elevator just fucking is rocked. Windows are broken. It is hanging on by one wire, and then the teacher falls out of the elevator to her death.
And her little body double falls and hits the side of the building and like
Yeah.
flips
Ah,
around.
cool.
It was so
I mean, horrific.
sad. And I need to take this moment to say no one else major really dies in this movie. I mean, Robert Wagner, whatever. But it broke my fucking heart
Same.
that this
Same.
woman who was like, I'm
was
on
so
my
much-
way
and
out,
she was-
I'm marrying rich, throw me from an elevator. Because it was
Yeah.
so sad to me. Because she goes through the
Well,
most.
she also, she goes through the most, and she also is like the selfless one who like literally like rushed to the elevator not to save herself, but to save the
children.
deaf lady and her kids.
If I remember correctly, too, Paul Newman specifically says, "I want her in the elevator because she saved children." Like he specifically is like, she should be saved.
Now he feels responsible.
Probably, and it's
care.
Also great too because we know that she's dead, but
he doesn't care. He doesn't know she
we
died.
know that she's dead, but Fred Astaire doesn't know that she's dead
it's
yet.
like-
He doesn't know that she's dead until the very end of the movie. So it's like
He's like, she
it's
can
even
do
more tragic.
everything I can do backwards. And heels.
In heels. It's honestly shocking, and I think it adds a level of like intensity to all these scenes because a lot of these scenes are obviously like, you know, in a model, like in a studio on a set. But now that you see a character that you actually care about falling to their death, it definitely adds a level of, pardon the pun, a gravity to the things that we're now saying. It's pretty great. So now the elevator is now just being hung on by one cable. And it's so great because they also cut to Steve McQueen, and he looks so goddamn tired of all of this.
He looks so exhausted. He's
just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
He's really good at having an exhausted face.
It's so great. So a cage is attached to the nearby building, and a lady is loaded in. And I wrote down, this lady is actually really good. I don't think she acts. She's incredible. She's just like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Incredible.
They like put her in the cage, and it's because of the wind, but it's also because of her performance. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I don't think she can do this. I think this thing's gonna fucking break. And we get like a long shot, a wide shot of her in the cage, and it's very intense. And she is actually like brought back to the other
Ethan, this
building.
cage is like bare bones cage. It's not like
Yeah, I didn't know what the cage really looks like.
Yeah.
It
I'm
sounds
trying to like,
pretty...
it's
how
like
would
a
you?
ski.
It's like a
I would call it a
shark
chairlift.
Oh.
Yeah, like I would call it a
Yeah,
chairlift.
chairlift.
Like it's got like a railing. There's no real cage. It's just like some.
Oh wow.
And like
That's even more
you're,
scary.
it's like meant for one person at a time.
Yeah. And it looks like it could like easily be bent. Like it is very scary and
And
dangerous.
there's like wind blowing. Like they want to emphasize that there's so much wind, so they're like, you know, rocking around.
Yeah, there's got to be tons of fucking fan machines just like hitting these actors. It's insane. So McQueen, he's like, all right, we got to fucking figure out how to get these guys out of the elevator. So he's like, all right, we're gonna, I don't know, man. It's so great to see him. He's like, I don't know, we're gonna like attach a helicopter to the elevator, I guess, and then we're gonna just see if we can like detach it from the cable, and then we're gonna just see if we can like lower it to the street. And then I think Steve McQueen's saying this to like another like helicopter pilot, and he's like, "Do you think it'll handle the weight?" And the helicopter pilot's like, "We'll see shortly." I'm like, "All right, guy, like."
I mean,
like genuinely.
like the thing is, you just don't know though, right?
We
Like
don't know.
you're literally doing stuff that like you only do in training, and like in the training situations, you probably are MacGyvering a lot of situations based on you know, a lot of tools what you have based on like what little kind of like resources you have and the time you have to do all this.
And like you as an audience member don't fucking know. Like,
No.
is it gonna work? Like it might break. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, someone asked Duncan like, how much time is left, and Duncan says, "I don't think all of us are going to make it."
Yeah, Duncan says that, and then his daughter comes up and is like, "Bye, Daddy. I'm gonna get in the cage next."
He
And
sounded
says,
so confident earlier in the movie that the fire would never reach him.
Yeah, well now
We didn't expect
he's
a helicopter
not very confident at all.
didn't expect
Although
a-
it does now, knowing that he wasn't aware of the corner's cut. You know,
That's true.
Yeah. So I wrote down, I think because that one lady fell, it makes... Oh, I was trying to figure out what is making these scenes so intense, like, as a viewer. Like, because ever since that fucking shitty, like, matte painting scene of the vent, I was like, I don't know
I
why
think it got
this
set up
movie's...
poorly, yeah.
I don't know how this movie is working so well, but it's because that one woman that we cared about, like, fell. It's like... It works. Like we are absolutely. My hands are getting sweaty watching this movie. So Steve McQueen attaches the elevator to the copter. One thing I forgot to mention is so I think I mentioned this before that Paul Newman was like, I want 12 people in that elevator, including another fireman, and the fireman that's in the elevator is the fireman from earlier that was
Paul
like,
Newman's
I don't
son.
know, Sarge. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna fall. It's that guy.
It's
Okay.
Paul Newman's
So.
son, yeah.
Paul Newman's son, right? So he's the one that's in the elevator. Steve McQueen attaches the elevator to the copter, and they've got to cut the cable that the elevator is being held by in order to get it just fully attached to the helicopter. And then suddenly another explosion happens, and the fireman, Paul Newman's son, I guess, who was in the elevator and was there to make sure that the women were safe, immediately fucking slips and he almost fucking falls to his death. And Steve McQueen is holding on to him with dear life. And they are still really fucking high up. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And you can see on Steve McQueen's face, like, I can't let another fucking person die, especially another fireman. And he's just holding on to him for dear life. And everyone in the elevator is screaming.
Slipping, and he's like,
yeah.
Geez.
He has to, like, his hand slips and he has to grab onto him again. And all that foreshadowing from earlier, he's just like, I don't know, Sarge. I don't know if I'm going to fall. I don't know if I'm going to fall to my death. And that's all fucking working through it all. And I'm like, oh no, is he going to die? Is he going to die? And then he has to hold on to him the entire time as they lower the elevator. And he finally lets go of him just as it's safe for him to fall into a giant inflatable mattress below. And he lives.
Damn.
And everyone else in the elevator survives as well. Wow. And it's a great sequence.
Yeah,
it truly is
intense.
wonderful.
And like the mayor's wife is apoplectic. Faye's like, honey, come down.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
There is a...
She's still cool as a cucumber, I imagine, right?
She's nothing to worry about.
She's just like,
she's
whatever,
fine.
this is fine.
She's going to be a managing editor or whatever.
She's collecting a check.
Yeah. We then get a grand shot of all the people who are hurt and bleeding and dying in the lobby.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like you have nurses, you have doctors, you have firemen just resting after like running up and down stairs and like fighting this fire.
Everyone looks exhausted.
It's so great. And I don't obviously know what the lobby looked like before, but I can imagine that like earlier on this lobby was like gorgeous and beautiful and like spotless. And now it's just full of people bleeding, like covered in soot, like crying. It's a great moment. It's a little bit moment of a reprieve, but it's also a moment of like reflection as well. It's a good little sequence. So the rest of the people in the promenade, there's about 20 minutes left before the fire basically like engulfs them from below.
Yeah, and they're like, it could take hours for us to get everyone from the...
They're like, it's going to take 3 hours for everyone to get out of there. And they're telling this to Steve McQueen. And this is the guy from Cloak and Dagger. He's the dude that's telling him this. He's like, look, here's our plan. There's a bunch of water tanks that are about 2 floors above them. What we should do is just blow up those...
Coleman, who just died.
Dan B. Coleman. He just passed away recently. R.I.P. Moment of silence. So they're like, let's blow up those water tanks and that are about 2 floors above. And then the water is going to flow through the floors and hopefully put out the fire. But also it might be dangerous to the people below as well. Like this
it's one of those things where it's like they're going to die either way. So
exactly. We might actually be saving more people in this way because like if we don't do that, the fire is going to engulf them and they're going to fucking die. And Steve McQueen's like, well, all right, but who's gonna light those charges? Who's dumb enough to light those charges? Obviously,
Paul
Steve McQueen.
Newman.
Well, Paul Newman and Steve McQueen are going to have to light the charges together, basically. And it's in this moment where I feel, and I don't know, I never saw Paul Newman and Faye Dunaway have sex. This is the real relationship in this movie, is Paul Newman and Steve McQueen. They have an intense connection in this movie.
I'll accept that.
It's so hot. They are fucking sweaty. They're talking over the phone. They look each other in blue eyes, and they're like, we have to fucking save these people. And if we have to have anal sex to do it, we're going to fucking do it. It is.
We already talked about your shaft earlier, so.
Yes. It is. They are so goddamn fucking horny to save people in this building. And it's so hot to watch.
So true. They're like, let's go.
It's hot. So we cut to Roger, who's a fucking shit stain. He's like, I don't care who fucking goes next. I'm next in that fucking cage.
Because earlier Roger was like, what number do you have? And someone's like, 48. And he's like, I'm 56. And like got pissed.
And he goes up to his father-in-law and he's like, I don't care who's next. I'm fucking next in that fucking cage. Nothing you can say. And Duncan, his father-in-law, punches him in the fucking gut.
Hell yeah. And that's why I thought he was cool.
And he says, Roger, we are the last two people.
We will be the last. Me and Roger.
We're the last two people out of this building, and that it's like fucking honestly, goes down with the ship.
Kept down with the ship, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Honestly, he may have cut corners accidentally, but at least he's trying to make up for it. He at least feels bad.
He feels bad. He does, and he also wants to hold Roger accountable.
These billionaires ain't so bad.
So Steve McQueen calls up Paul Newman, and he tells Newman about the plan. He's like, "Look, everyone in the promenade room is gonna have to fucking tie themselves down because in about 10 minutes." a massive explosion is going to go off, and it's not going to be safe for them. And Paul Newman has to turn to everyone. He's like, all right, guys, here's the plan. And Roger hears that. He's like, fuck that. And he runs to the cage and he jumps into it. And all these other guys climb onto the cage too. And like 5 or 6 people just scramble onto the cage. But
they're
Roger's
all hanging on the sides.
onto the cage. And so finally he's like, take me, pull me. And he gets pulled out of the building. He starts fucking kicking people out of the fucking cage. And they fall to their deaths.
What the fuck?
Yeah. He like kills people.
What the fuck?
Like 3 or 4 people fall out of the building because of him. And then because of all this, and because I think an explosion happens as well.
Yeah, an explosion happens.
Roger falls to his death as well. Roger is dead. And I remember there was...
So is the helicopter fine?
Huh?
Is the thing
it is not attached to the helicopter anymore.
They shoot a wire into the building, and then that building that Duncan was looking across the way. So it's basically
that's what I thought.
It's a whole police system. Yeah, it's like
I missed that part.
The only problem now is that there is no way to get people out via that cage system anymore. And then I remember this was foreshadowing because the whole idea wasn't there something about like him? He's on like thin. He's like walking on a wire or something like that.
She's a bitch and she's dead. That's all that matters.
I think you're right, though. Yeah.
Amen. So Newman tells Steve McQueen about all this, and I just wrote down there's this connection between these two. Passionate love, more intense than the connection that Newman has for Faye, in my opinion. So Steve McQueen is coptered onto the top of the building. He's wearing like a fire retardant
it's like a full
suit
outfit.
It looks like something you would go to like look at a volcano.
Yeah.
In this sort of suit, volcanologist suit. And he goes there, and there's this great shot showing the amount of damage that the fire has done to the building when he's in the helicopter. It's so great. The men meet on the roof of the building, and they're now among the tanks. And Steve McQueen shows Paul Newman how to set up the C4 explosives and how to detonate it. And they're like, all right, we're going to blow it together. And I'm like, hell yeah, they are. And they're like, all right, we're going to give ourselves 5 minutes to run for safety. And it's so goddamn intense. The music is starting to ramp up, tick, 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 tick. Yeah. And McQueen, oh my god! And then they're in the hallway, and there's this fucking fire, and it's keeping them from the promenade room. And this part was the most fucking homoerotic scene in the whole movie. So Steve McQueen has to run through fire in his fire retardant suit, but he needs oxygen, but Paul Newman has the oxygen, so he fucking puts the oxygen mask on Steve McQueen, and he's fucking sucking in his oxygen. It's so fucking hot. And then Steve McQueen puts on the suit, and he runs through the fire for Paul Newman. It's so intense.
He takes an entire door and like blocks the fire
for him, and then they're both
they
safe
come together.
And then
does their cum put out the fire?
Steve McQueen is like, I'm so fucking hot. And then they start fucking stripping Steve McQueen.
He's like, I'm burning up, baby.
I'm burning
Take
up
it
in here.
off.
Oh
my
my
God.
God. Take his clothes off. It's fucking insane. Like, it's truly amazing.
It's true.
I don't know what's real anymore, but continue on.
Am I lying? Am I
No,
lying,
it's
honeybees?
so true.
So they do come?
True. And he's like,
So then-
take it off. Take it off.
Take it off. And so they have to take off his clothes. It's great. So then they get into the promenade room.
Then they finally find the real Towering Inferno.
That's right. The Towering Inferno is a massive erection.
Oh, okay. That was their passion. Sure, if you want to be crude.
So they run into the promenade room. They're tying everybody down. Tick, 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 tick. Boom! The fire rages
that movie.
up through the...
Kaboom.
That's right. Tick, tick, boom. The fire rages from below, and then an explosion happens from above them, and men start to scramble to try to escape the blaze, and then suddenly water starts falling from above them, but that's not safe, actually, because it also, like, causes men to, like, fall out windows or, like get sucked up into the fire. It's fucking, like, it's absolute fucking chaos. Like, people are pushed into the fire. People are pushed out windows. The bartender gets crushed by a giant statue and he dies instantly. Carlos is dead.
No.
R.I.P. Yeah. And
I
then
thought you said no one else major dies, honeybees. Carlos, come on. You had one line in my house.
I kept his history alive because otherwise it would have been forgotten by you
There's one weird moment where, like, a guy falls down, like, a stairway, and then Duncan goes, Bob, no! And I'm like, who the fuck is Bob? Like, Bob's dead, I guess.
That feels like a war movie where they have to yell.
But it's okay, because Paul Newman's okay, Steve McQueen is okay, Fred Astaire is okay, and Duncan is okay. And the fire is put out on all the lower floors because of the water from above. And then everyone returns to the street below. And the first thing Fred Astaire does is he looks for that teacher, but he can't find her. But you know who does find is O.J. Simpson with the cat.
And you freaked out because you're like, what?
I was like, what the fuck is he doing here? Get away from him, Fred Astaire. Duncan is there and he's crying, and this part is so fucking like morbid. Duncan is there and his daughter's crying in his arms, and she's like, "Oh, my dead piece of shit husband is dead," and he's like, "There's nothing we can do to bring him back from
Duncan
the dead."
consoles her, but he doesn't care.
He saw what happened. He's like, this guy's a fucking asshole. Like,
and then he says, all we can do is pray to God that I can stop this from ever happening again. I'm like, well, maybe you really should like just look into any of the planning, like anything at all. Steve McQueen exits the building, and this part was awesome. Steve McQueen exits. He dunks his like helmet in some water, and then he looks and he only sees body bags.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. So he doesn't see. Just like him always being a pessimist, he doesn't see the people he saved. He only sees the people he lost.
He only sees the people he failed.
Damn.
And he walks by Paul Newman, and he says, "Hey, we were lucky. Less than 200 people died tonight.
Not bad."
And not bad.
Hey, that's that's 60% or so. Yeah, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
66%, yeah.
And he says, "But buildings like this, they're gonna keep getting built, and I'm gonna have to keep breathing smoke until someone asks firemen how to build these buildings better." And Paul Newman's like, "Hey, I'll call you next time I build a building." And he's like, "Yeah, you have my number." And I'm like, they're gonna
He does say to them, maybe they should leave this the way it is. Like, he just is like...
Oh, yeah. It's an effigy. It's an effigy to all the bullshit.
It's like those abandoned buildings in L.A. where it's like, don't give developers money who can't finish the job.
It's so great. And then the movie ends with the producer gratefully acknowledges the cooperation of a bunch of firefighters and fire departments and stuff. And that's the end of the movie. And it's pretty great.
You know what? I had a good time watching it. It's long. Yeah, maybe a little too long.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I feel like we might have enjoyed it more than you did.
Well,
you had to watch the whole thing.
I enjoy it because I love a good disaster movie, but I'm glad you enjoyed it more than my take, if I can.
Sure,
we love takes
here. Is just that because I compare everything to the Poseidon Adventure, is that the Poseidon Adventure creates a scenario that's a man-made tragedy. It has rooms. There's rooms they move through where it's like, now we have to climb up a Christmas tree. Now we have to swim through water. Now we have to go through here. Where this movie has an all-star cast. Yeah. And really no one's willing to die. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is very true.
Where in the Poseidon Adventure, there's like...
Shelley Winters dies.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 survivors at the end. In this, everyone comes in on top. And that's why I dislike it. Because I'm like, you show us this disaster movie, but like... Of the main cast, who dies? The art teacher, and Robert Wagner, and
like the son-in-law,
yeah,
Richard Chamberlain, who everyone hates and wants to
die.
Well,
I also think something that the
Poseidon.
I think something else that the Poseidon Adventure has going for it is it's focused on a small group of people going through. So having them picked off, it almost feels kind of like a horror movie.
Yeah.
In some ways, as people just slowly are trying to survive and they slowly get picked off one by one. While this feels more like an ensemble of like, look how badass firefighters are.
Yeah,
and how
that's
hard
why I
their
think
job is and how much
they
it sucks.
They dedicated it to them because it's like, this is like a scenario that I feel like people sat through and like, what would happen? What could we create?
Well, it's based on like 2 books, which is kind of wild. I mean, maybe they're in the same
2
series.
whole books.
It's based on The Tower, and it's also based on a book called The Glass Inferno, which is interesting that they just combine the 2. They're like, there's our title right there.
Tower and Inferno.
Yeah.
We gotta put them together. Yeah, I also think, we kind of brought this up in our 7th Samurai episode, where it's like, if you have a small group of people, it feels a little more personal. Whereas, like, if you have a large group of people, especially like nameless, faceless people who are like killed,
there's like tons of firefighters. There's only like 2 maybe that you know.
And it's a statistic. It's like you start to like lose interest in the people that are dying because you don't actually know them that well. Where it's like, and I feel like with Poseidon Adventure, and I agree with you, it's like that feels more like you want your characters to escape, whereas this feels, and like it sucks with like whenever I like write notes, I try to like only write about like character moments. This is very few character moments. It's all about procedure. Like what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And I think it works because of the direction, but I don't think it's necessarily.
It was a huge hit.
Good.
It was a successful.
Oh,
hit.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
I mean, it was fun to watch. I was entained the whole time.
I'm
I
glad
was
you
never
enjoyed
like,
it.
oh, man.
I mean, I thought, these straight people will like that, but Faye Dunaway.
I was still able to force some kind of homoerotic.
Yeah, I'm glad you
movie,
came up with that
feel-
because it is.
You feel this connection between these two men, and it is a very passionate, fiery romance.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I said, like I went into this and I was like, that's Steve McQueen. Oh, he's the main character. I forgot that Paul Newman was in it completely. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, it's really about these two guys going through whatever the motions.
Right.
Whatever they're going through their life.
They're figuring something out. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that you were here to talk to us about it, Honeybees. I feel like you really brought a lot to the conversation, especially like name dropping all these actors.
Yeah, and saying where they're coming from and all that, and
You're
the whole
welcome.
history. I appreciate it. And describing that man dying in a fire.
I mean,
Yeah, that was
if
a
I
horrible-
ever
Giving him
get
justice.
wind that you're watching a movie from the 70s, I will make my way.
I will say
Reminder,
also-
I said nothing during the Leprechaun series. I said nothing during 80 for Brady. I will pick where I want to appear.
That's fair. That's fair. So in the 70s. Speaking of which, the architecture in this, loved it. I loved all the weird, like, what they think kind of like the highest tech was. Like, this is probably like state of the art, right, at the time.
Oh, sure.
And to me, I'm just like, this is so dated looking. But I love it.
it's
I love
funny
how,
'cause,
like, dated it looked.
My boyfriend was like, when was this made? I said 1974. And he was like, oh, that's why the color is the way that it is. It's all very beiges and browns and oranges.
Yeah.
The whole movie is
Lots
like
of
a
orange.
neutral tone. And he's like,
Yep,
that's what it
absolutely.
was. That's what it is like at that time.
Everything is just like cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Like that's just what everything feels like.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it though. I had a really good time watching this movie. If you guys really enjoyed this podcast, I would highly recommend checking out the previous episode that Honeybees was on, which was during our Shelley Winter Wonderland.
What's the matter with Helen?
What's the matter with
Helen?
Helen? Check that one out. You can find it in any podcatching app. And while you're there, please leave a 5-star rating and review. We'll read it in the show, no matter what it says, even if it is a warning that our studio is currently on fire. Honeybees streams on Twitch pretty often. Honeybees, would you like to shout out your Twitch for us?
Not the Honeybees on Twitch. I stream 2 days a week. If you blink, you'll miss me. But if you don't, you'll catch me.
Hey, same.
Well,
I get ya.
I speaking for myself, we've missed you, Honeybees.
Yes. You're always
I'll
welcome
work
back.
my way in here. Don't worry. I presented you with several business plans.
That's true.
And I'm waiting for legal
that is
to
true.
approve.
But yeah, thank you again so much for being on the podcast. Thanks again for talking to us about this movie and for a very long movie. But
I'd say we almost avoided disaster a few times.
That
This
is true. That is
times
true.
while
This was a
recording this, so-
disaster podcast.
Yeah, so it was, but we made it through, and
We
all
made it
together,
through.
all your leads survived, just like this movie.
Oh no, there's OJ with the cat.
Ah!
Get out of here! Good night, everybody.
Go ahead.
Your battery's gonna die.
My battery's gonna die.
It just said consider plugging in your laptop.
Let me do that real quick. That's weird because it's plugged in.
Really? Something just popped up and the screen just went dark.
You're going to die in 7 days, Ethan. Get it together.
I'm sorry, I did want to interrupt, but I did also want the
I mean, that would be really
laptop to fucking like. Oh, you didn't plug it into the outlet.
What? Oh, it wasn't plugged in the outlet.
Got to plug it into the outlet.
Well, Mike, there's no room to plug it in the outlet. I was gonna ask you to unplug something.
No, you should. You never did.
I never did. There was like a million other things.
Oh, I thought I plugged it in.
Well, I plugged it in here.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Plugged it in here.
There we go.
All right. Are we good?
We're great.
Now look at that. The screen got all bright and everything.
All right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Saved us.
It's okay. I got
Anything. I'm Paul Newman here, and I'm like, this podcast isn't up to code.
I took a 6-month vacation in the Rockies. Why is nothing up to code?
I went to get Ethan a beer, and in that 5 minutes, he forgot to plug in the laptop.
Listen, you want me to record multiple people at the same time on a studio I'm not familiar with? I had to cut corners.
You know, Mike, why this is happening. You were aware.
I refuse to take responsibility.
You are the Roger.
I can't believe my daughter's married to you, Ethan.